creative solutions are not the only or even the best way to invest in the real estate space.
People can make intelligent decisions on how to increase their net worth. We live in a time right now, we're just in a very interesting real estate market.
The beauty of real estate is everybody looks like a genius in 20 years. The price doesn't matter if you get great terms. Simplest definition of subject to is the process of buying real estate without any credit, cash, or credentials.
Hey everybody, I'm so excited about today's podcast. This is a newer friend of mine, Michael Miller. I've had him on the podcast once before, but Michael's an interesting guy because for so many reasons. He's got a crazy story, and you can listen to the first podcast to hear about his history. But today's a really special conversation because we're going to talk about creative financing 101. And this is a guy who is connected with guys like Pace Morby, successfully closing subject to property closings all over the country, and so much more. So, with what's going on in our economy and the housing market right now, I just thought this would be a really valuable podcast for people to think outside the box. Whether you're wanting to buy an investment property, you wanted to buy your first home. And when Michael and I talk, it just goes on and on. So hopefully you enjoy this. Please make sure to like, subscribe, download, leave a comment, or ask any question. We will get back to those, and enjoy this podcast. Michael, what's up, buddy?
What's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing good. Where are you at right now?
I am in the makeshift studio or podcast studio in San Antonio, Texas. So we're here temporarily at the moment, just longing for the day to return back to beautiful Redding, California.
So let's talk about that for a second, because I told my wife this morning that I was having a podcast with you, and she said, "Oh yeah, they're in San Antonio." And I knew you guys had gone out there for your adoption. I didn't actually know like how long you're going to be out there. So unpack that a little bit, man, because that's one of the things you and I have in common, bro, is we love adopting babies.
That's right. We can't, I'm trying to stop adopting them at this point.
But me too, man.
I think, I think I may have met my match on this last one, but all three of our kids are adopted. We're super big adoption family. I know you guys are too. We just really love that for our family. I was adopted, so it's just a big part of our story. Our first two children were private adoptions. That, in a typical private adoption, you just, if it's out of state or whatever, you fly out there for a week or two, kind of go through the process, and then you can come home while you're waiting for the finalization. We adopted our second we got him in January of last year. So not this last January, but the January before. Mm-hmm. And to be honest with you, we kind of were like, well, we're probably done. We're happy with two kids. Like, it's great. But we've always said that if any biological siblings ever showed up, that would be a no-brainer for us. Like if there were ever an opportunity to adopt kids that were biologically related to our existing kids, like that would be a no-brainer. Well, fast forward to October, November of last year, we got a phone call that our oldest daughter has a biological brother who was just put into the foster care system, and they were trying to identify the next of kin that would be able to potentially consider adopting him. And so it was a whirlwind, super fast. It was an easy yes for us because we had already made that decision in our hearts, before we ever even knew about him. And so the disadvantage, though, is because he was already in the foster care system, we have to go through a completely different adoption process. It's it's called a kinship adoption, but it's through the foster care system. So we're technically fostering to adopt him. And for us, because I'm fortunate to have flexibility in how I work and where I work, we didn't want to leave him in foster care for the year it was going to take to go through the process. So what we worked out was a deal where we came out and temporarily relocated to Texas, where he is, and we became his foster parents until the adoption is finalized. And so we're expecting that to happen July, August, somewhere in there, and then we'll be able to return home. But we literally went from finding out this baby exists to living in Texas in like 35 days.
Yeah.
That was kind of the turnaround time, but we're super grateful. And, you might even be able to hear them screaming in the background. They're running around living their best lives. So, that's kind of the long and short of this particular adoption, which normally wouldn't take us a year away from home, but this one was a little different, a little special.
That's so cool, man. I love that. Yeah. We had to stay in Florida for probably a month. I mean, it was nowhere near what you guys were doing, but we had to stay in Florida for a month, which, Florida's kind of a nice place, but adoption is such a special thing. And, there's a lot more people in our circle starting to do it. I so encourage people to adopt kids. It's been it's been the greatest thing I've ever done in my life. Super motivating, man. You talk about working hard. I mean, it's not cheap to do adoption, and for me,
that's the one fringe benefit of a foster to adopt, though, is that
it's cheaper.
He's our free one. Yeah. So yeah. I got 3 for the price of 2 is what I've been
buy
saying,
2 get 1 free. Well, that's awesome. So, hey, listen, just for people that are listening, I would love you to just kind of give us your backstory, and I'll fill in some of it because I'm more interested in like the last few years. But, you were in banking, you've been in worship leading, you've been in ministry, you've done a lot of things, lived in a lot of places. But specifically in the last few years, give everyone a little bit of a background with how you ended up with where you're at today. And then, some of the things you guys are doing today.
Yeah, I mean, the common thread of my story has always been a business-centered thing. I mean, even when we were in ministry and when we were in worship world, like that was predominantly through a business that we had built. And the last few years when I exited the bank officially, like kind of my final farewell, it was not for any reason other than I knew I wanted to build something that would live beyond me. I remember where I was sitting in the kitchen nook at my house in Reading, work. I loved my job, by the way. Like the bank was really good to me. I was there for, 15, 16 years. I loved my job. I had a great bandwidth and trajectory. Like there was nothing about it. I think a lot of people hear these stories and it's like, I was really trying to get out of my 9 to 5 and that just wasn't my story. I just remember where I was sitting in the breakfast nook in the kitchen. And I had this I guess inspired thought that was like, if I don't go to work today and for enough days thereafter, like all this money goes away. Like I'm no matter how much money I make, cause I was a high income earning guy. I was fortunate. I had a great career, but no matter how much money I made, I was still trading my time for it. And so it started causing me to go and ironically, at the time I didn't realize this, but looking back now, it was right around the time our first daughter came into our lives. And so obviously my whole paradigm got shifted because now I wasn't building for me. I was building for her. And it started my journey of going like, what kind of legacy can I build? Do I want to build? How do I want to build it? And real estate has always been a passion of mine. I've always loved it. I've always dabbled in it as like a hobbyist investor. I come from a finance, world. And so I've got some context for it. And I just knew like in that moment, I knew in my heart that like I am leaving this some way, somehow, and I'm going, and whatever we do next is going to be tied to real estate because I know that's a legacy that I can build and that I can leave. And it wasn't 60 or 90 days later that I left the bank. So it was a pretty quick transition. Now I'll admit that like I had, a little bit of a runway, I'm a lot of people listening to this might not have the flexibility to make that kind of decision. I'm not an advocate for burning the ships, so to speak. If you've got a great 9 to 5, I think there's great ways you can build towards the life that I think you've been building, the life that I'm trying to build without burning all of the ships. I know burning the ships is really popular on social media, but that's not what I advocate for. But I was in a position where I could do that. I already owned some other businesses. I had good cash flow. I was in a good position. I immediately, the first thing I did to kind of shorten a long story, the first thing I did is I bought a mentorship. I shopped some different real estate mastermind groups and mentorships and went to a few different events, and I found the one that made the most sense to me. And I just wrote the check and I said, this is my community now. I don't know. I know what I know. I don't know what I don't know. And I'm going to see where we go from there. And I guess the punchline or the end of the story is that first year we bought 10 million in real estate using none of our own money by leveraging creative finance and principles of other people's money. So that's kind of the footnotes version of, where we started just a few short years ago. I mean, I had some real estate, but we accelerated very quickly without utilizing, a big portion of my own money. And that's kind of where we find ourselves today, now building upon that portfolio and continuing to leverage those strategies.
Yeah. So what a great story. I love that story. You and I met I don't know, it was maybe a year ago. I knew your wife. You've got an incredible wife. And I always think that you could judge a man's character by looking at who his wife is. Your wife is amazing, man. And,
you haven't
one of
done
the
so
things
bad for yourself either.
Oh no, my wife's an angel, man. I'm gonna have her on the podcast soon. She doesn't know that yet, but I'm also not going to let her listen to this one because I don't want to hear her hear the part where you said, if the siblings of my kids come on, because it won't take much for her to bring some more babies in the house. But
that's true.
Anyways, I saw you online and I was watching a lot of your content and, this whole subject to housing hack. There's a lot of these creative financing, words that are out there right now. And, just to play devil's advocate, buddy, and I know you know this more than anyone, there's a lot of stuff out there that could get people into trouble. Like, I don't even like the word hack, and self-admittedly, I've used the word because in my mind, the word hack is almost like a shortcut to hard work, a shortcut to paying your dues, cutting your teeth, and doing the things you want to do. And so I think a better word for what we're talking about is intelligent buying, intelligent financing. And it's a real thing, man, because I've been watching you and I've had a lot of clients and friends who are part of your whatever you want to call it, your movement, your group, Dead Presidents Club. And I've seen people accomplish some pretty incredible things that have raised my eyebrows. And of course, subject to is not a new word. A lot of people are aware of it, assuming mortgages, all the different things. But the reason why I thought this would be such a good topic for us to talk about today is because we live in a time right now where we're just in a very interesting real estate market. If we go back 2 years ago, when rates started going up, everyone thought we're going to see housing crash 2.0, 2008 2.0. Most of us that looked at any of the data knew that that's not what's going to happen here. But now we're, a year and a half, 2 years on the other side of this interest rate environment, inflation. And we know that prices didn't go down. We know that the credit markets are tight, and we know that everything costs more for people. So as a mortgage lender, I'm faced with the reality of how that affects people every day because they're being forced to move out of their home because they don't own it, and the sellers, the owner's selling it, or they're raising their rents, and they're trying to figure out how to buy a house right now, and it's very difficult. And this is for people buying their first home. But I've also got these people who have, they want to buy an investment property. They don't have 25% down. They're hearing about all these creative things, but they really just don't know how to do it. And so there's a lot of ways right now in 2024 where I think that people can make intelligent decisions on how to increase their net worth, which is my purpose, and I know it's yours too. It's the whole meaning of your whole, the Dead Presidents Club, and I got the shirt on it. Other people's money and other people's souls is my purpose.
I love it.
And so I just thought it would be really cool for us to talk about, kind of go through some of the stories of the things that you've done with some real cases, and I would like to talk about some too, like the opportunity with ADUs today, the opportunity to lower electricity bills, subject to assumable mortgage. But I just think this would be information that most people either have to put in their information on an Instagram reel or buy a course. Just thought we could kind of open it up and help demystify some of these concepts.
Dude, I love it. And I agree with you. Like, I think the word that we use that's better than hack is creative, right? It's intelligent. It's I mean, like, and to be clear, like spoiler alert, this is not the creative solutions are not the only or even the best way to invest in the real estate space. It's just a way to add a tool to your tool belt to go, like, cause I still buy conventional cash deals.
Yep.
I still use bank fine. I still do all of those things. But when I added sub two to my portfolio or to my tool belt, when I added seller financing to my tool belt, like in a way that I didn't even know seller financing was possible, when I learned raising private capital as a tool, like all of those things accelerated my growth. I mean, I learned, now I'm an all in guy if you haven't figured that out already, but like I heard about Pace Morby at an event from the mastermind that I was a part of, heard him talk about sub two on stage. Being a banker in my background, thought that's illegal for sure. And like immediately I'm like, there's no way that that's a legal process. Went home, did my research, realized I was wrong, spent the next 2 weeks consuming every piece of free content I could find from a guy named Pace Morby, and closed my first sub two deal like a month later. And since then we've bought probably 30 of them. And so, I look at that and I go like sub two, in a lot of ways, it's like, I don't want to become the sub two guy because I don't think it's the only or the best, or in every situation, it's not the best fit, but it is one tool in the tool belt that I think if you could just understand the pros and cons, to your point, you could help somebody with very little cash, very even poor credit, not a lot of experience, begin to break into wealth building in a way that maybe has never been possible in at least in our lifetime.
Yeah. So let's start there, man. In a nutshell, what is help people understand what sub two is?
The simplest definition of subject to is the process of buying real estate without any credit. The way Pace says it, that we'll steal, is without any credit, cash, or credentials. Meaning I can buy a property without using my credit or applying for a loan, without bringing cash in many cases to these deals, and without having to provide credentials like I would have to do if I was going to get a conventional loan, my W-2, my tax returns, etc. The way that happens is by understanding how the flow of money works in a real estate transaction. So you've heard this said before, probably, and maybe I've said this before, maybe you've said this, like when somebody goes, hey, do you own or rent your home? And you'll hear people say, well, technically the bank owns my home. Like I make payments to the bank owns my home. Well, I understand what you mean when you say that. What you mean to say is you've got a mortgage, but legally speaking, that's actually not true. The bank doesn't own your home.
Right.
The bank has a document. In our state, it's called a deed of trust. In many other states, it's called a mortgage, that is recorded against the property as a security or a financial interest in that property, or a claim to the liquidation of that property. That is a separate document from the document that actually is the ownership document, which could be called a deed, a special deed, warranty deed, quitclaim deed. So understanding in any real estate transaction that the flow of paperwork involves two separate documents. One is ownership, one is money. It gets confusing for people because they both have deed in them, at least in California and Texas and some other states. Indeed. But you're such a dad. I love it.
I know.
The understanding that there's a difference helps you understand what's possible. So if the deed of trust is the money and the deed is the ownership, then subject to is the process of me taking ownership or deed of a property subject to the existing mortgage that is on that property. And that is like the high level, like 1,000-foot definition is I'm taking legal ownership of an asset. And by the way, you can buy anything subject to that has financing, to be clear. It's not just real estate, but I'm taking legal ownership or deed of the property subject to the existing mortgage that's already been lent and recorded against that property. That's how a subject to transaction works.
So I'm going to ask you two questions. The first one I'm going to ask is, I'm going to tell you both. Why would a seller consider that? And the second one is, give us a story, a real story of how that has worked for somebody, because I know you have plenty.
Yeah. So, why somebody would do that really comes down to motivations. As an investor, my situation, and this, you're an investor too. Like we're not really looking for properties. Like we're not really looking for deals even. We're not even looking for houses. We're looking for motivation. We want to come in as a creative, especially in creative solutions. We want to come in as a solution to a motivation that somebody has that is unconventional. So, the reason why somebody might do a subject to transaction could be any number of reasons. I'll give you the easiest way to explain this is just to give you some case studies. One of which was, a scenario with a guy who had purchased a property, for his principal residence, bought the property, right before the market kind of took its dip when rates started going up and the market kind of stalled out and prices were kind of going bonkers. He bought at the very peak. He had the property for about a year, and then he got a phone call from back east, offering him his dream job. And the situation was very simple. He was like, he had to be there in a month. And I think it was actually 3 weeks. He had to be out there. He had bought this property at its peak. Rates had gone bonkers. The property was at best the value of what he owed. He bought it on an FHA loan, put 3.5% down. And now he's got his dream job and he has no capacity or interest or wherewithal in managing a rental property across the country. Right. Mm-hmm. So he goes back to his real estate agent and says, "Hey, I'd like to just sell this thing for what I bought it for." And she, of course, goes, "Well, with what equity?" Right. Because what a lot of people don't understand is, yeah, he might have put the 3.5% down, but that doesn't mean that he's got 3.5% equity, because when he resells that property, now he's got real estate commissions, closing costs, excise tax, et cetera, et cetera. He was going to have to bring, $10,000, $20,000 to the closing table in order to just get out of the property. It wasn't an option for him.
Right.
And so in that situation, he's quite literally stuck. He's not technically underwater, but he's in a position where he would have to be underwater if he wanted to exit that property. Mm-hmm. This is where creative gets really interesting, because, by the way, he had a mortgage at 3.25% interest or 3.5% interest,
which is
because
valuable.
It was before the major rate hikes took place. Yep. So he's got to somebody like me, he's got a very attractive situation in a market where cash flow is really hard to get when you're talking 6, 7, 8% interest rates. Yep. So I come to the table and I go, "Hey, let me be a creative solution for you. You don't have another exit unless you want to become a landlord. You've already told me you don't want to become a landlord, that's not going to work for you. So let us come to the table. We'll take care of the closing costs. So you'll bring nothing to the table. Maybe we'll give you," in that scenario, I think we gave him a couple $1,000 for his relocation price, right? We built that into the deal. "Let us cover your closing costs. Let us give you some of that money you did put down back, so it won't cost you anything to relocate. We're going to take over this property subject to this 3.25% mortgage. And now I'm playing the long game. I pick up a $400,000 asset at 3% in a 7 or 8% interest rate environment. Mm-hmm. I've got cash flow that I wouldn't have had if I had to buy it in a more traditional way. And I know, because the market is good, that in a decade from now, that property is going to be worth twice as much money, and I'm going to be winning in the long haul." So that's a really practical, real story of a motivation that, this person couldn't have gone on market with a realtor to sell this property without having to come out of pocket tremendously.
That's a great description. So we're gonna put a lot more in our description on YouTube about this. We could talk about subject to for a while, but I want to move into owner financing. So owner financing is another really cool option. And I'm a mortgage lender, so there's nothing in that for me. But I'm a relationship guy, so my number one goal is always to help my clients get what's best for them. So I've had a lot of clients that have come to me lately, and I've told them how to get owner financing. And there's a lot of ways to do it, but I'll give you a couple stories. First and foremost, my old pastor's wife, about 10 years ago, she was flipping a lot of her properties to owner financed. And I was just like, "Oh, that's really nice of her. That must be a generous thing that she's doing that." But once I started understanding wait a minute, she has a ton of equity. She does not want to sell them and take a capital gains hit. She needs fixed income because she's in a retirement stage in her life. And this is a way for her to, yeah, it's going to help some people that aren't going to have to come up with as much down. They're going to be able to get a rate that's a little bit better at the time than maybe what rates are. And so there are a lot of people out there right now that have properties that are free and clear or with really low mortgages that they don't necessarily want to take the hit and pay the taxes on selling that asset that they may have bought at $100,000 that's now worth $4, and there's $300,000 of capital gains. So for them, like if they could get some cash up front and a down payment, if they can get a fixed income out of that, like an annuity, it's a pretty cool thing. It's a win-win to the buyer. And the thing that I've learned is a lot of sellers aren't aware of that. They're not aware of that option. And so I've had some clients who have wrote a letter and they put pictures of their family on it and just talked about kind of where they're at and where they're at with income. And the market's really tough. And they've actually walked around neighborhoods and given these letters, and they've actually accomplished doing this. So that's my experience. Tell me a little bit about your experience with owner financing and maybe another case study of where that's worked out for somebody.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to take it to the extreme because we're talking about creative finance, because I think what's important to delineate is the fact that owner finance is not all that creative in terms of a solution, right? There's some pretty typical, historical ways that that's done. But what people miss out on is all of the creative advantages that come around owner finance. And the best way that I describe this is understanding that when you're talking about creative anything in real estate, what you're having is a price terms conversation. Because I agree with you. Like I think if you need a house, a homestead, and you want to look for seller finance, like writing the letter, putting your family in there, knocking on doors, like that's a great way to possibly uncover a seller finance situation that would be advantageous for you. But it's an even easier way to do it. If you're not doing it for that purpose, but you're doing it for building wealth and building your portfolio, is finding the sellers who are willing to trade their terms for a better price outcome on their house. Because again, the beauty of real estate, you and I know this. I hope that the people listening to this know this, but if you don't, the beauty of real estate is everybody looks like a genius in 20 years. Like the price doesn't matter if you get great terms. Now, make no mistake, I like good deals. You like good deals. Like I like it when I get that big discounted property or that big opportunity, I love that. But at the end of the day, what I love almost as much of that is amassing a large portfolio of quality assets that have good terms that I'm going to let do their thing for the next decade or 2 decades, because my kids aren't going to care what price I paid for these properties. They're going to look at my portfolio and think dad was a genius, even if I paid too much. And so owner financing allows you to create these win-win scenarios through creative thinking, where we get out of the box of nickel and diming each other over one lever, which is price. And we start to think more creatively to go, well, price is one lever, but interest rate's another lever. Totally. Term is a lever. There's all of these different levers. I'll give you one really crazy scenario I bought. It's actually a deal I bought in Shasta Lake City. And the long and short, I don't buy mobile homes unless the joke we make in our communities, Michael doesn't buy mobile homes unless he does. And what I mean by that is it's not an asset class I'm looking for. They're depreciating assets. I don't like them. Most of them are not worth what the land that they're sitting on. Right. And so I just don't buy them. But I had one come through one of my marketing channels. Somebody had probably typed like sell your home fast, Shasta County. And they clicked my website, got the email, and started talking to this guy, and immediately he's like, yeah, it's a mobile home. And in my brain, I was like, nah, okay, it's just another, I'm going to be a pass. But I'm a nice guy. I like to meet people. I like to interact. And so I just started listening to the guy's story, and he's like, yeah, man, I've just had this dream to get this RV and, travel across the country and see my grandkids and like live my retirement in this RV. And if I could just get $100,000 for this mobile home, for this house, this property I've got, like I could do all of that. And, And I was like, oh, interesting. So have you decided which, it's not a mobile home. What do they call them? Travel trailers.
Yeah.
Have you decided which travel trailer you want? He's like, yeah, I was just down at Bluebird or Blue Dog or whatever it is. And I found this one. And I was like, I'm just curious, like, what would the payment be on that thing? If if you were to finance it. And he's like, well, I actually got the term sheets. It's $453 a month, to finance. And, and I was like, oh, great. And he's like, yeah, I already got the truck, all this stuff. And I said, hey, listen, I'll just be honest with you. This property is not worth $100,000. Okay. Certainly not to me. I don't think it's worth that to anybody, but you've got a renter in there. He had a renter in it already for like $850 a month, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'll give you your dream, but here's how I'd like to do it. And this is just my creative proposal to you. I'm going to give you $10,000 to fill up your gas tank and get a little bit of walking around money and, start you on your journey. You're going to go finance that travel trailer, and I'm going to give you $500 a month principal only until this thing's paid off. Not going to pay any interest. I'm not going to nickel and dime you on what I think it's worth or what I think it's not worth. I'm just going to give you $500 a month and until this thing's paid off. And if something, if something happens to you, we can write it up where I'll pay it to your successors, until it's paid off. Right. So it's like, we'll get you your 100, we'll get you your price, we'll get you your dream, but here's the terms that would make that work for me. And you should have heard this guy squeal on the other side of this phone. It was the greatest thing he had ever heard in his entire life, because I think deep down he knew he wasn't getting $100,000 for this place.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, maybe
he probably already talked to realtors and confirmed that.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a bad deal. Maybe it was a bad decision. But you know what I got? I got $400 and some a month in cash flow on a $10,000 investment. And this thing's going to be paid off in, 15 years or whatever it is. I don't remember the term offhand. And I'll probably just bulldoze the travel or the mobile home and build a stick built there. Right. And so again, did I analyze that deal and did I overpay for it? Probably, but I got cash flow and my cash on cash returns really good. And at the end of the day, I got more dirt. And so again, it's a really extreme example. I'm not doing that type of crazy in every deal, but if you can create these, literally the way I say it to sellers is tell me everything you want, hope, and need out of this transaction. And if I can say yes to all of those things and then give you terms that make it work for me, well, obviously you're going to say yes because we have a win-win. And that's an example of a really crazy creative seller finance deal.
That's cool. That's cool. So we're going from like the most creative, and we're going to slowly kind of make our way across the spectrum to more conventional. So
sure.
One of the other opportunities that's out there right now that I think is definitely underutilized and not really fully understood is the legislation bills that have passed, like SB 9 and AB 684 and a few others, where because of the housing crisis in California, there is now a suggested ordinance statewide for every county that has to adhere to it to allow building accessory dwelling units on properties up to 1,200 square feet, and some properties can have up to 2. And if there's not enough room, they can literally be stacked. The reason why that is something that I think a lot of people have not caught on to, at least in Northern California, like I say, north of Sacramento, is mostly because people haven't seen it. Just like the things that you guys are doing, awareness comes from people seeing something successfully work. And then people are drawn to it. The realtors and the people in the industry become aware of it. They start talking about it, and there becomes a proven path, and people want to go on that path. And so basically the way this rule works is if you own a property right now, or if you buy a property, you can get streamlined permitting. You can get streamlined and eliminate a lot of the impact fees and build basically another house. I mean, they can be up to 1,200 square feet, 4 bedrooms with some of the plans I've seen. And you can save a lot of the money because of the permits that you're going to skip. And, it's a really cool way to add underutilized value to the property. Now, here's where the problem has been in Shasta County. Number one, the cost to build them and the time it takes is actually more than a place like Sacramento or San Diego. And the difference between those two markets are, if I could build that ADU here in Redding and it's going to be the same price or more and take longer, and at the end it's going to be barely worth what I paid to build it, but it's worth $700,000 down in Sacramento, it makes it really tough for people to do that. The appraisers can't get value out of them. And so we've really struggled because of where our housing prices are to see that work. But I have a friend, Laura Locke, that I was talking to recently. She's done 100 of them down in Southern California. She's actually built a fund. And so this is a big deal. If you go to any other city in California, like, this is something that they're doing. And a lot of people, existing homeowners, home buyers, investors are doing really well with it. So in Shasta County, the opportunity I see right now is the rules with the ADUs and with the financing, they do include the conversion of an existing building. So if you were to find a single family property, let's say in the Garden Tract, that had a detached garage, and you were to convert the detached garage to an accessory dwelling unit, another house, you can use all the same rules, but you're going to pay half the cost of building an ADU from scratch, because you've got a roof, you've got, a slab, you've got, 2x4s, a lot of those hard costs that are still inflated, you're going to skip. So I'll give you a case study. There was a house I saw this week down there that was absolutely beautiful for about $460,000. And it had a brand new pool. It was one of the nicest houses I've seen downtown. And it has a detached garage. So I called Jim Bethea and I said, hey, give me a range on what it would cost to make this ADU similar to better quality as the house. Not something stripped down with, really cheap countertop, like super nice marble countertops, wood floors. He said it would be 50 to 70. So I called an appraiser and I said, hey, appraiser, would this house appraise for 520 if it had a permitted ADU? Because that's what it's going to cost on the highest side of the building. He said, absolutely, it totally would. So then I called a couple rental managers that we work with, and something like that downtown right now would probably rent for about $1,800 a month. So I did the math and I was like, geez, man, if you were to rent this house, and we're talking long-term rents, we're not talking midterm or short term, you could probably get $2,500 for the house and $1,800 for the ADU. And I did the numbers. I was like, why aren't more people looking at this? And the answer is that people just don't know about it, which is why I thought a conversation like this would be so valuable. So there are loan programs out there right now where you can build the cost of the ADU into your purchase loan. And if an existing homeowner has a detached garage, it doesn't even have to be a detached garage, by the way. It could be the garage, one of the garages. It could be a weird wing on the house. Like a lot of these houses around here have the lower wing that was built after the home was built, and it's kind of funky and no one hangs out down there. As long as it has a separate entrance, it's got a kitchen. It can be a studio. It doesn't have to have a bedroom, but it's got to be an actual living unit that has its own entrance. You can do this and you can finance it, and you can get streamlined permitting and no impact fees. So that's something that I really see as an opportunity. I mean, we already see some people putting ADUs on their property. Ryan Russell and, a couple of our friends have put them on their properties down there. And I just think it's a matter of time before people are going to catch on to this in Redding. We're going to have some comparables, and we're finally going to see that take off. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, yes, to all of it. Yes. Even in that scenario you played out, I'm thinking like, okay, it cost me $50,000 to get 1,800 in rents. That's like a 40% cash on cash return. Like, I'm doing that all day long, right? Yep. Like, there's no, and by the way, like, there's a dozen different creative ways you could finance that if you already own the property, right?
Totally.
And so, I also think though about like the stuff that's emerging with like the creative build solutions. Like, in Redding, US Offsite's got some creative solutions where you can get, they're not going to be that affordable, right? They're not going to be as cost effective, but what you save in is the 10-month build time, right?
Which is
that's an option.
Very valuable.
I think about like, I'm hearing friends, I haven't heard of it in Redding, although maybe I ought to try it so that I can market it or something as a creative solution. But I've got some friends in the South that are ordering these Amazon homes They're like 20 or
Wow.
$25,000 for these like box home kit homes. And they're literally putting them on their properties as ADUs, and you pay 25 grand and you get, 1,000 or 1,500 in rent. It's like, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that the cost, the ROI on this is good. Now, would a solution like that appraise as well as a garage conversion? Probably not. Definitely not. But, again, it's understanding your motivation, understanding your goals, understanding your outcomes. And more importantly, I think the thing that I love about creative in all of these spheres, from like, sub 2 all the way through to, the most simplest creative solutions, is that it lowers the barrier to entry in an environment where the barrier is getting only higher. Like let's be real. And I don't know if you would agree with this, but I've been saying for a long time, like, I don't think home ownership is in the future of the American dream for the average American in 15 years, unless they figure out how to do this way.
Yeah.
And this is where the house hacking kind of concepts come into play. And for me, I'm looking at it going like, I don't know how my kids are going to buy property in 30 years, right? Or 20 years when they're at that age. I'm really paying attention to all of this to go, I'm not saying that it's the way it should be, but I'm looking at the environment. I'm looking at the direction we're heading, and I'm going, unless something pivots hard, housing prices are only going one way. Home affordability is only going one way. I read an article recently. Somebody did a study, and I love studiers and economists and analysts. They're like really expensive guessers. So I don't know where they get all this data sometimes, but basically their projection is that rents are going to triple in the next decade nationally. That's terrifying.
Well, they always double. They've always doubled. So if you add the inflation that we have right now, I mean, and the 13 million that have crossed the border in the last 5 years, I don't think that's crazy at all.
It's not crazy in terms of possibility, but it's sad. Be something that causes people to go, I have to do something different. Yeah. And it also helps people understand, like, this conversation. I go like, look, you don't need to go buy 10 million in real estate next year. Go do one of these strategies one time.
Yep. Yeah, like, you got to get in the game. I agree with you, Michael. And I just want to say, I wish I didn't see what I see. It's not like you and I are sitting on, the assets we have and we're super grateful for, thinking like, we're smart. What we see right now is an attack on the middle class. And if you have read any, world power history books, and you've paid attention to any of this at all, like, this is not something that should surprise us. It's always been a prediction from some really smart people. The middle class was an experiment, and most countries don't have a middle class. You're either poor or you're rich. And I also am a learner, and I've seen so many charts over the last year that show how the middle class is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. The rich are getting richer, and people are going to have to pick a side. And so that's my whole mission. It's like, I'm not telling people they need to get wealthy so that they can drive a fancy car and like vacation in exotic places. That's the benefit of those things, and that's great. I'm telling them they need to get wealthy because our government is not going to be able to take care of them. And the opportunities to create wealth are getting taken away daily. And that's just the reality. And I don't see any way where that changes. So I guess to answer your question, I agree with you. I don't see a path where homeownership is going to become affordable anytime in the near future. Everything our government continues to do to try to intervene instead of letting the market be a free market only makes stuff more expensive. And I don't understand how more people don't see that and aren't trying to like say, hey, wait a minute, like, you're not actually helping us. But that's the thing people got to understand is like, become wealthy to secure your future and to secure your children's future. Learn this stuff. You don't have to go to college anymore. In fact, you could make the argument that is probably worse for you. Here we just had a whole conversation about creative ways to buy real estate. Just because I do mortgages, I want to add to that and say that you said it early on. We're not saying this is the only way. We're just saying that in this current environment, you want to become mortgage ready where you can get conventional financing, but you don't have to wait. There's other options out there. So yeah, Michael, we're on the same page on all of that. And one of the things I wanted to end on as a good segue is people are going to want to know more about the things we're talking about. We're just doing kind of a quick podcast here, and there's probably tons of questions. Tell me a little bit about the event that you have coming up in August. And I don't know if there's a link yet we'll be able to add, but at least talk a little bit about that, because this is something you're teaching. There's a Facebook group. There's a lot of our friends involved, and I'm getting involved with you. And I think it's a really good thing for people to be aware of.
Well, let me first say, man, I got to commend you and guys like you who are, more stereotypically conventional wisdom, right? In what you do, lending and all these things. I'm seeing this growing, separation between people like you that are willing to embrace alternatives versus the ones that are rejecting it. I've got people in your shoes that are telling their sellers that things like subject to are illegal or they're detrimental and really it's just these uninformed people that are not recognizing that there's more than one way to do this. And again, in the same way, I think that the creative guys that say the only way you should buy real estate is creative is just as harmful as saying the only way to buy real estate is conventional, right? And so I just commend you for creating space that frankly not harms, but is a competition to your own business, right? I mean, you said it, seller finance is not good news for you. But the fact that you're here saying it's a viable option should further solidify the credibility and the character of the voice, right? Because you really are trying to help people do money different, not just build your business. And I think that's commendable.
Thank you.
I can't talk exactly about the details because we're still in finalization mode. But in September, it's now we're looking at the last week of September in Redding, California. We will be having our Creative Wealth Con, and it's going to be really real estate heavy, but the messaging is really going to be about learning to do money different. And yes, real estate that's my chosen path. I know that's your chosen path. But we're going to be talking about the rules of money according to the rich and understanding that like at some level, a lot of the conventional wisdom that has been taught to us is either outdated or ill-informed. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I think it's safe to say that the system isn't rigged in our favor. To your point, the middle class is a great experiment, and that experiment is failing. And so now you have to choose what side of that experiment you want to be on. And our hope is to provide as much value and inspiration and access to the knowledge as
tactics.
possible. Yeah, to go like, look, pick one. To your point, I don't need you to go buy a Lambo. I need you to go build something that'll last beyond you and that your kids will benefit from. That's my hope for you. And so this isn't about getting rich so that we can get rich. This is about us building something that matters and being able to do the things we want to do with our lives and our future generations. So in September, you can stay connected, but we also have free resources. So we've got a Facebook group. You can check out Dead Presidents Club on Facebook. We do 2 calls a week with industry experts. I got to get you on. And we talk about market updates. We talk about creative strategies. We talk about rules of wealth building. And this stuff's all free. We're not trying to sell you our e-course. We're not trying to create some environment where we're going to gatekeep information and hide all the real stuff behind the paywall. I'll give you as much free as I can. Because I genuinely want to see people do money different and break out of these cycles of belief that it always has to be the way that grandpa told them. Grandpa's not dealing with a 2024 economy. Mom and dad aren't dealing with the interest rate environment that you're dealing with. You know what I mean? And so, if you want to stay connected, like I said, we've got resources. Facebook's a great way to do it. You can also go to dpdealclub.com. It's got some information there, but, be a part of the club. We're just trying to figure out how to, tell people money's not scary. You don't have a money problem. You've got a knowledge problem. And if we can help close that knowledge gap, the money problem will solve itself. So I appreciate you letting me be a part of this, man. I love what you're doing and honored to be on.
Well, I thank you. Thank you. That was good, man. I learned a few things. I hope you guys did too. Please make sure, I know there's a lot of people listening right now and watching. We would love to get your feedback. So make sure, again, you like, subscribe, drop a comment or a question. And Michael and I will do this again, I'm sure. So we'll get you more information about that event that's coming up. Make sure you go check out his Facebook page. We'll put a link in the description. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. Have a great rest of your day.